Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for being here to discuss these two unresolved fatal pedestrian hit and runs that are being investigated by this Bureau today and over the last couple days and weeks. We're grateful to our media partners for helping us highlight this and hopefully helping come to a resolution. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department Traffic Bureau operates throughout our entire community. Before they get into the specifics of these two cases, I want to take a moment to thank them so much. Thank Sergeant McAuliffe, thank Lieutenant Munson behind me for the work they do every day to keep us safe. They focus primarily on education, enforcement as a last result, but making sure that our community is aware of their surroundings from the beginning of the process, the way we engineer our roads, all the way through to the enforcement piece, of course, with education in the middle. That's really the focus of this Bureau, and they do a tremendous job with the resources they have throughout our entire valley. We're grateful to them. And we're also here, as I mentioned, to highlight these two cases, the 15th and 21st pedestrian fatality in Metro's jurisdiction. When you think about that, we're now at 23 pedestrian fatalities in our jurisdiction, and it's only March, way surpassing last year. There are lots of reasons for it, but we want to take this opportunity to remind everyone to be aware, be cognizant of their surroundings, but slow down when you're in your vehicles in our community. Take an extra minute. Be cognizant that we are returning to more populated roadways as we continue to reopen our community, and this is really going to be a joint effort by everybody. And we also are here to highlight these hit and runs because the community plays an imperative role in helping resolve these cases. The team here does an incredible job, oftentimes with hardly any information to go on. They work so hard to resolve these cases, but in those like these two that we're here to talk about today, you have such little information to go on that it really is up to our community to get involved, pay attention, take notice of people in their lives that might be acting a little bit unusual, and invite everybody to call 702-828-3786. This team here investigates every lead that they get. And of course, Crime Stoppers is also an important partner in this. Anyone who wants to give information anonymously can do that through Crime Stoppers at 702-385-5555. And thank you so much. I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Munson. Lieutenant.
Thank you, Commissioner Naft. Again, thank you, media, for coming out today. We've called you here, of course, this morning to talk about the death of two people. And I want that to sink in for a minute. That's two people that aren't coming home. That could have been any of you or me that didn't come home. And the drivers of these two incidences fled the scene. They left, not calling for medical attention, not rendering any aid to those people. They left them to lie there, to die on the roadways. That is not acceptable. That is not the community that we are part of. These drivers, we're asking for the public's help in identifying them. And I'm going to give you some specific information, reference these two fatalities, to hopefully jog the memories of some people that might have been out there who saw what occurred. I want to address the drivers and how important it is to stay on scene. This year, as the Commissioner talked about, we are at 6 hit-and-run fatalities. We're not even 3 months, we're just ending 3 months into the year, 6. Last year, we had 10 total hit-and-run fatalities for the year. We're at 6. That's 6 people that fled the scene. And in most cases, what we're finding is it's false concerns that they have why they flee the scene. When they're interviewed after they're taken into custody, they say, oh, I thought I had warrants. They say, I didn't have a driver's license, or I had a suspended driver's license or no insurance. But the fact of the matter is they left the scene letting somebody lay on the road and die. That is not acceptable to us. So I'm going to talk about the first fatality that happened on February 20th, 2021 at 9:24 p.m. at Twain Avenue and Paule Verdes Street. In this case, a pedestrian crossed the road near a crosswalk against a pedestrian control device and was struck by a vehicle and killed. The suspect vehicle that we're looking for is burgundy or maroon in color, mid-size SUV with possible driver's side damage. The driver left the pedestrian lying there in the roadway, as I said before, to die. And I keep saying that because I want that to resonate with everybody. These are people, and they're dying on our roadways, laying there bleeding to death dying, and nobody did anything to stop them. Many times people drive by a wreck and they don't realize to call the police, so they thought somebody already did call. We're asking you to call anyways. Give us whatever information you have so that we can do a further investigation. In this case, if the driver had stayed at the scene, the investigation would have not found that driver at fault in this case. The pedestrian was at fault. But that pedestrian is no longer with us today because that driver didn't stay and call for medical attention, which is desperately needed in these type of collisions. The second fatality, hit and run, occurred on March 14th, 2021 at 8:48 p.m. Lake Mead Boulevard, north of Lincoln Road. In this case, the pedestrian darted across oncoming traffic, not in a crosswalk, and was struck by a vehicle. And at the end, the end result of that was the death of that pedestrian as well. And this driver, again, didn't stop, didn't render aid, didn't do what they should have done. In this case, there are vehicle parts left behind that belong to a 2007 to 2009 Toyota Camry, and also some gray paint flecks was left on the roadway as well from that vehicle. So we're looking for a possible Toyota Camry 2007 to 2009, gray in color. Both of these drivers left the scene, and both of these drivers, if they would have stayed on scene, were not at fault in this collision. But now they're looking at serious felony charges. And what people may not know, if you leave the scene of an accident where somebody is injured or dies, you could suffer a felony charge of up to 20 years in prison. 20 years in prison. Let that resonate with those who are driving who think they can run. You're looking at 20 years in prison. If you would have stayed, you could have saved a life. And that's the most important message here, is if they would have stayed behind and called for medical response, they could have saved the lives of these people possibly. I know I seem like I'm coming off really strong, but it is important because we are on a path that we do not want to continue. We want to stop this. And it's up to our community, it's up to all of us to make sure that that happens. Again, we need your help, and I'm asking that if anyone has any information to come forward. These families need closure. These families need justice. And the people that are responsible need to face the consequences of their actions. As the Commissioner said before, they can remain anonymous by calling Crime Stoppers, or you can go online even now through your phone app and call crimestoppersofnv.com. You can do that through online, or you can message our Facebook at LVMPD Traffic. And on our Facebook, we are going to be highlighting all of our hit-and-run fatalities that we've had that are not solved. Again, I want to thank the Commissioner for his support, as well as I want to give a special thank you to all of you here in the media that are in this room today. Because if it isn't for you, we wouldn't get our message out. And you help us accomplish our mission to provide exceptional police services in partnership with our community. And I thank you again for everything you guys do for us. If you have questions, yes.
We released a little snippet of video this morning that looked like some cars in the parking lot. Can you explain what we were looking at there?
You know what? I'm going to bring the actual case agent on this because he can speak specifically to that incident. Okay. It's going to be Detective Salisbury.
What was your question about the video?
Yeah, the video. Like, what are we looking at? It looks like there's some cars parked in maybe like.
It's not necessarily the cars in the parking lot you're looking at, but the backdrop. And in the backdrop, you'll see that 2007 to 2009 Toyota Camry traveling westbound on Lake Mead. In this instance, that's about all the evidence we have to go off of. We have a blurry video of a car that we wouldn't have identified had those parts not been left behind. And that's why we need the public's help in identifying this vehicle and the driver. It's not like TV where we can zoom in and enhance and solve everything based on a grainy, blurry video that we have. We need the public's help in identifying that friend, that coworker, that family member who has a 2007 to 2009 Toyota Camry that's gray and is now not being driven or is in a wreck that they can't explain. We need the public's help with that.
So it's the car driving past?
Yes.
What goes into these investigations? You mentioned paint on the roadway. How thorough are they?
It's a very broad question. How thorough are the investigations? We investigate everything as thorough as we can. We exhaust all leads until we have no other resources left. And most of the time, that results in a conviction. We get many of our drivers in custody. On these two instances, we don't. That's why we're asking for the public's help.
You spoke about half a dozen fatals, but 4 people have been arrested on the other 4?
Yes.
Are there factors that are contributing, do you think, to this spike that we've seen over the last few weeks? This is not just a high number for this year, but that's a high number for that stretch. I mean, that's a lot.
Absolutely, and while we can talk about many different factors on the frequency of these fatals, ultimately I'm going to tell you the biggest factor that I've seen in my last 15 years of investigating traffic crashes is speed and impairment. Whether it's the pedestrian that's impaired, whether it's the driver that's impaired, impairment's commonly a factor. And the other one is speed. If in these instances, even when the pedestrian's at fault, if that driver had been going a little bit slower, many of these can be avoided.
Are the investigations taxing on the team? I mean, you have so many accumulated in such a short amount of time.
Taxing, yes, of course. We do a lot of hard work. We respond to anywhere in the neighborhood of 120 to 150 of these each year, and there's only 8 of us. We're out on the roadways in the middle of the night often.
How confident are you that these people will be identified and arrested?
I'm counting on the public's help. In order for a conviction to be made in this case, I need those people to come forward. Somebody knows something. A person doesn't just hit and kill somebody on a road and remain completely silent. Somebody's friend, their family, their coworker knows that they did this. That's the person I'm looking for to do the honest, right thing and come forward. Because the driver that isn't coming forward, that person's a coward. We already know that. They're not taking responsibility for their actions. I'm counting on that person that knows the driver to do the right thing and report them so we can at least have a lead to go off of. And in those cases, when that happens, yes, we're going to make a conviction. There's going to be somebody who's going to be held accountable.
At what point do you have to call the family and say, we don't have it, we don't know?
I try not to give up and lose hope on any case because we've had them. We had one hit and run that we solved, and it was like 15 months after the fact. Finally, the evidence comes in, and we get forensics back, and we're able to make that arrest. That's great. So I try not to ever give up hope to that family. But in this case specifically, on our March 14th crash, I've already spoken to the family and let them know what the amount of evidence we have, which is very limited.
Is there a message out there for pedestrians also to do the right thing on maybe if they would have been on a crosswalk?
Absolutely. Pedestrians that are out there, you have to keep yourself safe. In our industry, we call it don't be dead right. If you're going to walk out in a crosswalk, you still need to be cognizant of your surroundings. Don't cross thinking I have the right of way and not look for traffic, because when that vehicle hits you, you're soft and squishy compared to that vehicle. You're going to get hurt or killed. Be cognizant of your surroundings. When I'm walking down the street on the sidewalk with my daughters, I'm hyper vigilant on everything around me because I've seen this too often. I want to make sure that my daughters and I are safe while we're walking on the sidewalk, because too often you see these crashes where vehicles are coming up onto the sidewalk like we had 2 weeks ago.
So these drivers wouldn't face any charges relating to the crash itself. They weren't at fault there, but they will face charges for fleeing the scene, right?
Correct. On March 14th, I don't know if that driver's impaired or had something going on, but I have somebody that's traveling down the roadway at night at a lawful speed. If that driver's not impaired and they hit and killed that pedestrian, remain there, there's absolutely no charges that would be filed in that case.
The charges for hitting somebody being impaired, is it similar to the charge of fleeing the scene? Say somebody
As far as the consequences?
Yeah.
Yes, we're one of the only states that do that, where our leaving the scene, our hit and run charges, the consequences are up to and including the same consequence for driving under the influence resulting in substantial bodily harm or death. Thank you for your time.
Does anybody have any other questions? Commissioner Knapp, you have anything?
No, just again, thank you all for coming and helping us get out the word. Crime Stoppers is 385-5555. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.